Good evening, you're watching London Live News at 6 with Tanya Francis. Coming up tonight, the family of a woman killed in a street attack in Ilford have said she believed all women should be able to walk home safely. Zara Alina's family have said she was the rock of their family. Celebrating the life of Dame Deborah James, tributes from royals, celebrities and politicians honouring the podcast host and campaigner who has sadly died from bowel cancer. We'll have an update on London's weather in the next 10 minutes. Plus, it's time to book a holiday. Doctor's orders, apparently. Dr. Amir Khan is hoping more people will prescribe themselves a much-needed break this summer. And it's the 15th anniversary of the Grimebourne Festival. The annual opera will return to East London this July. Well, all of that on the way, but first, the family of a girl who was found dead in East London made a moving tribute to the law graduate, saying she believed every woman should be able to walk home safely. 35-year-old Zara Alina was on Cranbrook Road in Ilford, a 10-minute walk from her home when she was attacked and killed. She was found with severe head injuries in the early hours of Sunday morning. 29-year-old Jordan McSweeney has been accused of allegedly murdering her. He appeared in court today. No plea was made, and he has been remanded in custody and will appear at the Old Bailey on the 27th of July. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have paid tribute to Dame Deborah James, who died following a long struggle with bowel cancer. In a tweet, the royals paid tribute, calling her an inspiration and unfalteringly brave woman. She had been receiving end-of-life care for the illness at home and has raised millions of pounds for cancer research. Well, we'll have more on Deborah and her incredible legacy in the next part of the show. Some other news now. Sadiq Khan has said he believes Britain should push to rejoin the single market, as Brexit is the biggest piece of self-inflicted harm ever done to a country. Well, the mayor suggested returning to the EU trading zone after reports that leaving the EU has caused a multi-billion-pound blow to UK trade. Mr. Khan's comments came after a poll by the Evening Standard, which showed that nearly 50% of adults say that Brexit was wrong. Mr. Khan went on to say he's not speaking on behalf of the Labour Party, who nationally are not advocating to rejoin the single market. Now, Sajid Javid has been at the Great Ormond Street Hospital here in London, setting out his digital and social care plan, which was published today. It includes better access to NHS records and better contact with medical professionals. The Health Secretary also announced he'll be publishing a women's health strategy, which his team are in the stages of completing at the moment.
Today, we're launching a digital revolution for the NHS and care through this new plan. I want patients to have effective and quick access for their health needs at their fingertips, and that's not only better for them in terms of outcomes, but it's better for the NHS. It will save time and it will save money. So the plan we're publishing today covers everything from digital robots to remote monitoring, the use of artificial intelligence, electronic patient records, and that NHS app. Everyone remembers the NHS app from the height of the pandemic. Some 28 million people already have downloaded it. I think that's something like 60% of adults. So we're going to add new features to that over the coming months and years. You'll be able to book your GP appointment and have messages you exchange with your GP. You'll be able to monitor and manage your hospital appointments. You'll be able to access not just your records, but your children's health records. So there's so much more we can do. I've seen great examples of what we can achieve here today at the Great Ormond Street, where they're already a step ahead in terms of digital technology. And really the end result of all this is that I want the values of the NHS from 1948 when it was founded, but we've got to be planning for 2048. As the Health Secretary, it shouldn't surprise anyone that I want all people, and in this case you asked me about women, I want them to have access to the very best healthcare, and that is why I will soon be publishing, very soon, the first time ever in this country, a women's health strategy, which has been put together by your cross-government, led my department. We had a consultation on this, over 100,000 responses. I think the biggest consultation response we've ever seen, and I think when that's published, people will see just how seriously we take women's health.
Now, as you walk around the capital, you might, from time to time, bump into a movie star, a cameraman, or a full-blown film set. Well, there's even more chance of this happening now, as the City of London is set to double its filming revenue this year by renting out its streets and buildings. Well, the area is set to bring in £1 million by the end of 2022, in comparison to just over half of that annually in the past 5 years. Well, film, TV and series giants such as Netflix, Marvel and Warner Brothers have all recently been filming in the Square Mile, with popular spots like the Barbican, Finsbury Circus and London Wall. So keep a lookout for Spider-Man or Hulk next time you're walking through the city. Now, a look at travel across London. TfL is holding a public consultation on plans to axe up to 16 bus routes in an attempt to meet savings targets. It was revealed today that it would save £35 million per year as part of an agreement with the government and the terms of the bailout. Well, the consultation has been extended until the beginning of August to allow Londoners to have their say. Well, this comes as TfL's multi-million-pound contract with the global airline Emirates has come to an end for its East London cable car. TfL will have to pick up the bill for the cable car, which provides a direct link between the O2 Arena and the ExCeL Centre. The 10-year contract was worth £36 million, and they are looking for another commercial partner, which is expected to be announced later this year. TfL have also announced that the night tube on the Northern Line will be back from this weekend. There has been a staggered return of the night services since the pandemic, with the Mayor of London saying that this is a landmark moment in the capital's recovery. The RMT strike action across the night tube services will continue until the end of the year, with the union saying that it will cause minimal disruption to the service. Now, let's turn our attention to Wimbledon, where the tennis championship is on at the moment. There will be no ranking points for this year's tournament after the Association of Tennis Professionals responded to the All England Club's stance to ban Russian and Belarusian players this year because of the ongoing war in Ukraine. But despite no high-profile players pulling out due to the decision, coronavirus and wet weather means that there are concerns over the number of empty seats a few days in. Here's what fans in the famous Wimbledon queue had to say.
There's obviously a few things going on at the moment which probably prohibits people coming to things like this. It's an expensive day out. You've seen at Lord's as well, the cricket's not been selling out. Those are normally guaranteed days and people are probably doing that. Also, it's harder to move around. Getting into this country, probably putting a few international tourists coming to Wimbledon off. So it's a shame, particularly when you see the later Murray the other day with a few empty seats thinking I'd love to be there. But at the same time, the atmosphere's great, good amount of people here today. And obviously not being able to come to this sort of stuff last couple of years or reduced last year in Wimbledon anyway, I think it's still pretty great.
Maybe 2 or 3 people with mask. Nobody is worried about COVID anymore. But I'm not worried. I've got 3 jobs, so hopefully I will be okay.
You've had people not going to sporting events, getting out of habit, isolating a lot, not necessarily having social contact, and you see that in all realms really. Like I work in a gym, and a lot of people still aren't necessarily comfortable coming back into the gym environment a year after it reopened, and we're at 60-70% of capacity pre-COVID numbers. We haven't got back up to our full membership base, and that's taken over a year and we've been open, whereas Wimbledon obviously last year didn't really have the ground admission. This is the first time. It might take another year to 2 to get back to where it was.
Well, sticking with Wimbledon, let's give you a behind-the-scenes look now. One of the very important tasks is to make sure that the pigeons are cleared from the court, and that job falls on a team of hawks. Well, Wayne Davis is one of the hawk trainers who's been doing the job for 22 years, and in his early days, he was actually told to go and get a proper job, but thankfully he didn't listen to them, and he's now at the top of his league and will be working alongside one of his trusty birds, Rufus, for the 14 days of this year's tournament.
It's basically the same, although this is a different technique. It's called imprinting. But when we fly the Harris Hawk next, probably the only concession we make is we use radio tracking on them, so if they go off, whereas before you just had bells and it would be visuals. But now we can locate them about 5 miles away, which just makes it so much easier to find them, especially because flying in the middle of London is quite difficult compared to flying in the countryside, because there's so many distractions and obviously if I want to get over there, it takes me half an hour to drive over, you know, with all the chicanes and everything. And we start from 5 until 9 o'clock flying in Centre Court 1 in the grounds, and then we do some media stuff, and then we go elsewhere in London. But I love it, you know. It's a passion, and it's a lifestyle more than anything, you know. I'm very privileged, although it takes commitment and commitment to follow it through, you know. Because when I first started, people were like, "Get a proper job," and I was like, "I don't want a proper job. I just want to fly Falcons," you know. So it's evolved very well. Thank you.
Now let's take a look at the weather, which hasn't been particularly nice today. Alicia has the update for us for this evening, and she is at Wimbledon.
Yes, the rain has cleared here at the Tennis Championships, making way for a sunny afternoon and evening. For those who are getting back into their tents tonight, just down the road from here, it is good news. There's not more rain forecast overnight tonight, lows of 13 degrees. But looking ahead to tomorrow, there is some rain forecast in the afternoon, but highs of 21 degrees during the day and more sunshine to look forward to. As we look ahead to Friday, there is more sunshine on the way, some patches of cloud throughout the day, but highs of 22 degrees. And looking further ahead to the weekend, highs of 22 degrees on Saturday and Sunday. So more to look forward to for people heading to Wimbledon for the weekend.
Well, there you have it, Alicia reporting from a rather wet and grisly Wimbledon. It's time for a break, but up next, we're all feeling the pinch with the rising cost of living. We'll have a financial expert on the show next with some tips of how we can save those pennies.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello and welcome back to some of the headlines from across the UK. Scams related to energy bills and council tax rebates are on the rise. This is according to the banking trade body UK Finance, who have said people of all ages are being targeted with a focus on the younger generations. Criminals are impersonating a range of official bodies, convincing their victims to invest their money in fake funds, often contacting people online and through social media platforms. Or people should contact their bank immediately if they think that they've been conned and report it to Action Fraud. A new poll by survey site IPOS has found that 50% of Brits would support NHS staff if they went on strike. The findings follow speculation that they could strike over pay after ministers suggested any increases should be limited to 3%. Well, if they do walk out, they would join other public sector workers, including railway workers and criminal barristers, who have already been protesting over pay and conditions. And the holiday rental company Airbnb have permanently banned parties and events at homes on their platform worldwide. It was a measure that they temporarily introduced during the pandemic, and after proving popular with hosts, it has now become a global rule. Well, more than 6,600 guests had been suspended for not sticking to these rules, and complaints about parties went down by 44% since the measures were introduced. So something to consider if you're looking to book a spot for that stag or hen or 50th birthday party. Now, as many of us continue to feel the pinch with the increased cost of living, new data is showing nearly 55% of young Londoners fear that they will never be able to save enough to buy a property or reach their life goals. Well, the figures are from the market research company YouGov, and to talk about them in more depth and give us more of an insight into what we can do to look after our finances, I spoke to Charlotte Jessup, an expert in the area.
This new research from Go Cardless, who are a payments company that I'm working with, suggests that 63% of Gen Z and millennials are struggling to save because of the cost of living crisis. And I'm seeing this, I'm a millennial, and everything's getting more expensive, and this means that something's got to give. And for a lot of people, the first thing that's going to be hit is their savings potential. And we've also seen that 40% of this particular group are also just struggling to cover their day-to-day expenses as well. So it's a real problem that is hitting the younger generations the hardest.
Not surprising, is it? We're all feeling the pinch. We're all talking about this constantly, about how we're having to sort of spend money on things that we haven't done before and things that perhaps we don't want to have to spend money on. What are some of the implications of this? Is there a sense that the younger generation are now feeling a bit hopeless when it comes to being able to achieve the things that they want to achieve?
Yes, so 48% of this particular group of people, millennials, Gen Z, are concerned that they're not going to be able to reach their life goals. So this can be things like buying that first house, which is we're talking about a lot, and is it's been pretty much a general theme for most millennials, as I can speak from a personal perspective, is they feel that this is hard. It's going to be a struggle, and a lot of them feel that it's impossible. But it's not just those things; it's also things like paying off debts, or it's just those other things that we want to achieve in life. Maybe it's just to take your family on holiday or go traveling. With this cost of living crisis, that is becoming increasingly out of reach, it feels.
This pressure is sort of mounting in many ways. Any tips really about how we can kind of mitigate what's happening around us? We don't really have control over many of the bills and the caps and all of those kind of things, but there must be things that we can do that can give us that slight edge.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I know that I'm feeling is this sense of overwhelm at the moment. There's, managing your money and dealing with the cost of living crisis feels just like another thing on top of that. So I always encourage people to try and be as lazy as possible when it comes to their money. And that's coming from me as like a busy mum. I've got a business. I'm doing all of these things. So it's using the technology that's out there. So there's some new technology that is coming in July, which is called variable recurring payments. And the way we're talking about this is like direct debits, but instant. So they're much, much faster than the old direct debit system. But what they will enable people to do is link their bank accounts. So these are being rolled out slowly. They will come to banks first, and it will enable you to then set up systems within your own personal limits that then allow you to transfer money from one account to the other. So for people that are hoping to achieve their, big dreams of saving for their first house and things like that, what this will mean is that you can quickly transfer that money from, say, your current account into a savings account, and you can do that automatically. So until that tech comes out, we've still got direct debit, so we can fall back on those things. But it's going to make that whole process a lot easier when that comes. So be on the lookout for that. There are lots of other things you can do as well. So I'm always encouraging people to get really clear on things like the goal that they want to achieve. So get some numbers in there. Make sure that you are clear on what you're working towards. Is it, do you want £10,000 or £2,000, or what is it that you're aiming for? Make sure that your savings are working for you. Are you getting the best interest rates? Are you utilising things like lifetime ISAs? So one of Go Cardless's customers is a company called Nude that are helping people to buy their first home. They have a lifetime ISA. So there's lots of great things out there, and it's taking advantage of those for your own kind of mental health. It's not another thing you're having to deal with on top of all the other stresses that we have in our lives, and it can help you achieve those goals, hopefully on the similar trajectory to what they were before this crisis happened.
I think for a lot of people, regardless of age, but particularly perhaps the really young generation or the older generation, there can sometimes feel like there's a bit of a disconnect between your ability to completely understand the world of finance. It can seem quite daunting, apps and figures and all of these things. How do you suggest that people get started? Because when you look at a lot of these suggestions, sometimes it can just add to the feeling of being overwhelmed.
Absolutely. There are lots of people like myself that are out there trying to kind of demystify the world of finance. I think it's something that is probably scarier from the outside than it is once you get involved and you start learning these things. So there are lots of great resources. I would recommend turning to things that we use all the time, things like social media, and looking for people that are like you in similar situations that are talking about these things and kind of removing some of the taboo. So there is a savings gap. There is a gap between where we want to be and where we want to go to, but there was also a generational issue here, and I believe that some of this is largely to lack of education, or this taboo feeling around money, and that's something that we're really trying to work on so that we can play catch up with some of this disparity between the generations.
There we have it, Charlotte Jessup there with lots of good advice on how we can save money at a time when it feels like all we're doing is spending it and not necessarily on the things that we want to. Now, following a long battle with cancer, Dame Deborah James has died at the age of 40. The campaigner, broadcaster and former teacher had been receiving end-of-life care for bowel cancer at home and had raised millions of pounds for charity since her diagnosis in 2016. Well, tributes have come in from far and wide, with her family describing her as an inspiration. A number of royals and politicians came forward today to honour her life and legacy.
Mr. Speaker, I know that the thoughts of the whole House will be with the family and friends of Dame Deborah James following the news of her death. I lost my father at a young age to cancer. I will know firsthand the pain that her family must be feeling. But we also know that Dame Deborah was a huge inspiration to so many and raised millions to help others affected by cancer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I also share with the Deputy Prime Minister his deepest condolences and his personal experience as we mourn the loss of Dame Deborah James, who fearlessly campaigned to inspire so many, and I'm absolutely sure there's no doubt that she saved the lives of many more.
Well, I was very saddened, I think, like the whole nation, about the news about Dame Deborah, and my thoughts are immediately with her family and friends. But she's been an inspiration to the entire country. I think everyone's heard of her because of her fantastic work to raise awareness of what she called the C word, and I think her legacy will be the many, probably millions of lives that she will save.
Well, as well as tributes from politicians, the Chief Executive of Bowel Cancer UK, one of the charities that Dame Deborah dedicated her life to raising money for, has spoken of the special gift that she had in being able to have difficult conversations about the disease.
Deborah, she didn't stop. She had an energy and determination to keep going and to keep raising awareness and to keep supporting the causes that were important to her and to keep supporting people who reached out to her for help personally. And that from really day one of her diagnosis, she has turned something personally tragic for her and for her family in unimaginable ways into a force, for a long-lasting force for good. And I think that her legacy will go on and will be felt for many years to come.
Dame Deborah James, who inspired and reassured millions of people as she so gracefully battled cancer. Our thoughts are with her family in these difficult times. You're watching London Live News at 6 with Tanya Francis. A reminder of our top story coming up after the break. And time to book that holiday. Doctor's orders, apparently. We'll have GP Amir Khan on the show next, who is hoping more people will book a well-earned break this summer.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather. And know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
And welcome back. A reminder of our top story this evening. The family of a girl who was found dead in East London made a moving tribute to the law graduate, saying she believed every woman should be able to walk home safely. 35-year-old Zara Alina was on Cranbrook Road in Ilford, a 10-minute walk from her home, when she was attacked and killed. She was found with severe head injuries in the early hours of Sunday morning. 29-year-old Jordan McSweeney has been accused of allegedly murdering her. He appeared in court today. No plea was made, and he has been remanded in custody and will appear at the Old Bailey on the 27th of July. Some other news now. Sadiq Khan has said he believes Britain should push to rejoin the single market, as Brexit is the biggest piece of self-inflicted harm ever done to a country. Well, the mayor suggested returning to the EU trading zone after reports that leaving the EU has caused a multi-billion-pound blow to UK trade. Mr. Khan's comments came after a poll by the Evening Standard which showed that nearly 50% of adults say that Brexit was wrong. Mr. Khan went on to say he's not speaking on behalf of the Labour Party, who nationally are not advocating to rejoin the single market. Now, Sajid Javid has been at the Great Ormond Street Hospital here in London, setting out his digital and social care plan, which was published today. It includes better access to NHS records and better contact with medical professionals. The Health Secretary also announced he'll be publishing a women's health strategy, which his team are in the stages of completing at the moment.
Today, we're launching a digital revolution for the NHS and care through this new plan. I want patients to have effective and quick access for their health needs at their fingertips, and that's not only better for them in terms of outcomes, but it's better for the NHS. It will save time and it will save money. So the plan we're publishing today covers everything from digital robots to remote monitoring, the use of artificial intelligence, electronic patient records, and that NHS app. Everyone remembers the NHS app from the height of the pandemic. Some 28 million people already have downloaded it. I think that's something like 60% of adults. So we're going to add new features to that over the coming months and years. You'll be able to book your GP appointment and have messages you exchange with your GP. You'll be able to monitor and manage your hospital appointments. You'll be able to access not just your records, but your children's health records. So there's so much more we can do. I've seen great examples of what we can achieve here today at the Great Ormond Street, where they're already a step ahead in terms of digital technology. And really the end result of all this is that I want the values of the NHS from 1948 when it was founded, but we've got to be planning for 2048. As the Health Secretary, it shouldn't surprise anyone that I want all people, and in this case you ask me about women, I want them to have access to the very best healthcare, and that is why I will soon be publishing, very soon, the first time ever in this country, a women's health strategy, which has been put together by your cross-government, led my department. We had a consultation on this, over 100,000 responses. I think the biggest consultation response we've ever seen. And I think when that's published, people will see just how seriously we take women's health.
Now, a look at travel across London. TfL is holding a public consultation on plans to axe up to 16 bus routes in an attempt to meet savings targets. It was revealed today that it would save £35 million per year as part of an agreement with the government and the terms of the bailout. Well, the consultation has been extended until the beginning of August to allow Londoners to have their say. Well, this comes as TfL's multi-million-pound contract with the global airline Emirates has come to an end for its East London cable car. TfL will have to pick up the bill for the cable car, which provides a direct link between the O2 Arena and the ExCeL Centre. The 10-year contract was worth £36 million, and they are looking for another commercial partner, which is expected to be announced later this year. Now, a lot of us will be thinking about going on our summer holidays at the moment, and with good reason. As the stresses and responsibilities of day-to-day life mount, almost 6 in 10 of us want to travel more to help our mental and physical well-being, with 42% saying their mental health suffered from not travelling during the pandemic. Wellbeing expert Dr. Amir Khan is hoping more will prescribe themselves a well-earned trip. Well, Henry has been speaking to the GP.
So there's research now that suggests that Brits go abroad for a break for their mental health, really, and like to be active when they're abroad and immerse themselves in activities in nature in particular, because we know that's good for our mental health. And particularly after holidays, the last couple of years where we've had restrictions on and also kind of if you do go on holiday, it has been a bit of a stress because there's so many tests you have to take and prove that you're vaccinated and all that. But with things like that easing now, people are able to go on holiday without that fuss and really take a break from the stress of everyday life, which we all face, whether that be work, whether it be looking after family members, and we all need a break. And I think the last 2 years has shown that we actually do, and we've missed it not being able to do that.
In London, there's the hustle and bustle of a capital city. I believe in the research, 6 in 10 so they want to travel more for their mental and physical well-being. Are those numbers normal, or is it worrying that so many feel like they have to escape to protect their physical and mental well-being?
Well, I think holidays have always been a way for us to protect our mental well-being. You know, we want something to look forward to. We want something to enjoy. That lovely anticipation of a holiday before it arrives is so good for us, and it feels so nice. And then when we get somewhere, particularly if you go somewhere hot, you know, that feel when you get off the plane and that heat hits you, all of these trigger very pleasurable kind of emotions. And behind that are lots of physiological changes inside of us that make us feel that way. And I think, you know, particularly if you live in a highly urbanized area like London, and I work in inner city Bradford, which again is, you know, urbanized in a different way, but people need a break from that. And what we know about people's trips abroad is, you know, often they go to beaches or cabins in woods and things that take them away from that kind of urban environment, because we know inside of us that is good for our mental health. And there's so much research to support the fact that spending time in nature, and a beach is nature, is good for our physical health.
So you were away in British Columbia. Why did you go there, and did you experience something known as the British Columbia effect?
I did. So I'm a big advocate for time in nature, and I love, anyone who knows me will know that whenever I can, I try and go wildlife spotting, whether it's here locally or anywhere else in the world. And British Columbia offers that on a massive scale, because you've got these huge wild beaches and seas and mountain ranges with the Rockies and vast forests. So every day I like to be active when I'm on holiday. So we went mountain biking, hiking, kind of sailing, all of these kind of things. And every day I would see incredible wildlife, brown bears, grizzly bears, ospreys, bald eagles, whales, sea otters. You know, the list was really long. And for someone who gets excited about seeing a woodpecker in his garden, this was like huge for me. So I, you know, every day I was just smiling from ear to ear all day long. And that is what the British Columbia effect is all about, you know, immersing yourself in the nature out there, disconnecting from your everyday life here in the UK. It did help that I had no reception in a lot of the places we went to visit. And it made me, you know, really force me to focus on what was going on around me, because I'm one of those people who checks my emails every like half hour in case I miss something. So kind of taking me out of that was really beneficial for my mental health. And, you know, if people are lucky enough to go to British Columbia, it will do the same for them. But if you can't, any time in any green space, you know, even local green spaces, has been proven to be good for us. So the recommendation is 2 hours a week, spread out through the week, however suits you, has been shown to be really good, particularly for your mental health.
I was going to ask then, what's the sort of suggestion for people moving forward who maybe need to relax or feel like they need to relax, and as you said, over the last few years they haven't been able to? I believe there's a green social prescribing initiative already from the NHS, but what else can people do?
So certainly, you know, part of my job is making sure people get the support they need for their mental health. So if you're worried about your mental health, you should really speak to a healthcare professional about it. And there's lots of options. People often don't want to go and speak about it because they think they'll automatically go on tablets, but that isn't the case, and no decision will be made without your consent. So we will offer you all sorts of things, whether that's talking therapy, whether it's group therapy. If medication you feel and we feel is the right thing for you, then yes, we can do that as well. But, you know, in terms of what people can do for themselves, you know, certainly time outdoors in local green spaces is good. Exercise is good. Sleep is really good for your mental health as well, making sure you're getting 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep each night, and taking time for yourself. You know, all of these things that I've listed there often mean you taking time for yourself. It's not being selfish. It is you looking after yourself so you can be more productive in the rest of the time through that day and do the other things that you need to do.
We are taking a short break, but next, 15 years of the Grimebourne Festival. The well-known opera is returning to Hackney. Stay with us.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello and welcome back to the show. Now, after winning an award, a new play is now getting the chance to be performed. Tikkun Olam, written by Tanuki van der Sluis, won an Originals Playwriting Award in partnership with Riverside Studios and will be performed and streamed on Saturday. It's a script-in-hand performance directed by established theatre director Michael Boyd to market the play to become a full-time production in the future. Well, Henry has been speaking to one of the actors involved.
And the play is one of the 3 winners of a national hunt for the best new writing of the year. And the RSC has decided that they would do rehearsed readings of them. We get a day and a half to practice it, and then we're going to do a rehearsed reading, which will be recorded and will be available online for a couple of years. And the idea is to try and market this new writing in the hope that somebody will pick up the plays and give them a full production.
Yeah, this is a little bit different to, you know, a normal production. You will have your scripts in hand, is that correct?
Yes, luckily. I mean, I have done it on occasion. I've memorized an entire script overnight, but it's a bit of a challenge. And I think for taking pity on our audience, it's much better if we do it with the scripts there so that we can keep a flow on the play. And we're working with Michael Boyd, who's a wonderful director who I've worked with before. And I know he's going to bring out the best of it.
As you mentioned earlier, this is a play that was part of an award, won an award. So what's it like to be part of sort of a refreshing new project?
Well, it's always exciting. For a long time now, I've been very committed to new writing because I think it's as exciting, if not more exciting, as doing the classical canon. And it's great to reach out and find people. And Steve Atkinson, who's one of the people behind this project, has been very committed to new writing for quite a long time. In fact, I've done several projects for his company in the past. And I don't know the other actors. So apart from Michael, the director, and Steve, who's the organising entrepreneur, producer, it'll be all new people. And that's one of the great things, especially after lockdown, when one has been, very cut off from working in a room with people. And actually, I'm just getting over COVID, so it's particularly good for me to be able to go out and about.
How important is it that there are innovative, production opportunities for early writers, early artists in the industry?
I think it's absolutely crucial. So one of the things that's very hard is to make a living. One can sit at home writing away, but you need people. It's essentially a business that requires an audience. You could convene your friends, but it's simply not the same as getting a platform. And it's really hard for young writers to do that and to get a living from it. So it's a great enterprise, I think, to be doing it this way. And hopefully somebody is going to like the plays enough to pick them up and run with them. I haven't read the other plays, so I don't know what they're like, but the standard of this one is very high. I think it's really good, and I think it deserves full production.
As we've mentioned, it will be script in hand for you, and this is part of an award, as we've mentioned. As an actor going into something like this, is it about the script completely, or are you trying to put your own emphasis on anything, on the acting, or is it completely about the script?
We will have to be very attentive in the short time that we have to how we relate to each other. Most of the scenes are two-handers, and it's it is actually slightly easier to organize two people than to organize a cast of, say, 8 or 10 in a space, to know where people go, where they sit, where they move. And we're all going to conventionalize what we wear so that won't be a distraction. We'll be in very simple rehearsal clothes, although hopefully appropriate to the characters we're playing. So as you said earlier, Henry, it'll be about the words more than anything else and the situation. But I think it will be worthwhile for people to tune into it. And I think they will have an enjoyable time. We'll do our very best to make it very entertaining for them, as well as very stimulating.
Well, there you have it. That was Diana Quick, who's taking part in the script in hand version of Ticking Olam this Saturday at Riverside Studios. Now, an opera festival giving people a taste of the art genre is returning to North London next month for its 15th year. The Grimebourne Festival is on at the Arcola Theatre in Hackney and aims to attract new visitors to the form whilst also having something for the experienced opera goer. It starts on the 26th of July and runs through to mid-September. Henry has been speaking to opera director Julia Burbach, who has been involved in the production this year.
Very first show I did with them was in 2015. It was a Madama Butterfly, and we had a very tiny budget, and I was a much more junior director in those days, and but they gave me a chance. It was really important work, and we've sort of grown from there. So they've been very important in my development. They do a lot for the genre and the art form in an unusual way.
In an unusual way. So can you explain a little bit more about that?
Unusual way in terms of they're located in a part of London where usually you wouldn't necessarily expect to find opera. And they are able to package it in a way that is, I suppose, more accessible than, creatives and audience members. And you might be a seasoned opera goer, or you might be a newcomer, and it's very easy and flexible and affordable, and you can just have a look and see if you like it. And I think that's really important. So it's sort of quite uncomplicated and straightforward. And I'm a big believer in you shouldn't give up on a genre or an art form just because you don't like one little thing.
Absolutely, because in theatre there's so many different types, and as you said, you're trying to attract new but also experienced opera goers. But what is so special about opera to you, Julia?
I very early on as a teenager, sort of the directing bug bit me via the acting bug. But I remember my mom was like, she's an actress. She was like, you're not doing that. So and I was like, okay. And I think what she meant is that it doesn't suit my character and personality. And she's not wrong, you know. Being a director suits me as a person much more, and I feel very at home in the work and very connected to who I am as as a person in the world. But in opera, there's lots of international people sort of buzzing around, and everybody speaks different languages. You don't understand some, you understand some, and it's all very mixed. And so being me fits in there, and that's an asset. And that's, of course, really nice. So it brings together lots of things about, different art forms that I can kind of combine there. And that's really wonderful. And I thought, okay, I feel at home here, and it's a great genre, and you can explore lots of different things.
There are 11 female directors in this year's festival. You said, of course, that you got your break when you were a junior director yourself. What would you say, though, to the youngsters in this time around?
I know many of these, younger directors, male and female, and some of them, are assisting me, and I try to support them in their growth. And whenever, within the sort of limited means of my influence, I try to connect people to the right people so that you can get the right opportunities to see if this is the right path for you, because it's a very unusual path, and it's not an easy path. And I'd say it's being an artist is something that requires you to stay very connected to your instinct and your soul, your heart, your truthfulness. And I think that's a very delicate relationship you have with yourself. And at the same time, it requires a lot of strength and endurance. So you need two sets of things that are actually, I wouldn't say opposites. I think they're compatible, but those are two different skills that you need. And I think one always has to have an honest dialogue with oneself about that, and then to be happy in the work, and to understand we're all growing and we're all learning. But if you try to surround yourself with the right team, then you have the best chance of developing. And then be kind to yourself and allow time for that to happen. And the path isn't chronological always, and the path isn't always easy, and there are different routes. So don't give up. Don't give up easily, but try to make really good choices and be honest with yourself.
That's the Grimebourne Opera Festival. It's on at the Arcola Theatre from the 26th of July all the way up until September. Another update on the weather for you now. Cloud will thicken this evening, and the sporadic showers will continue overnight, with minimum temperatures of around 9 degrees. Tomorrow will start off sunny and bright, but the cloud and rain showers will return as we head into the afternoon on Thursday. Some brighter weather on Friday, but still a chance of rain all weekend, sadly, at this stage. It's not quite the British summer weather that we were hoping for. That's all from us now. Thank you for watching London Live News. You can catch us again tomorrow at the same time. And until then, we'll have more news from across London on our social channels. Check us out on @LondonLive. Have a lovely evening.